Hello all, and welcome to today's review, which I am dubbing a Lazy Thursday review because it's been a very lazy Thursday. The weather is god-awful. As you can kind of see, I'm a little bit wet, and that's because they had a sudden downpour a few minutes ago, and my chickens were out, and they didn't make it back to the coop in time, so they're under a bush, and they're making an unholy racket, so I had to try and, herd them back into their coop, which got me a little bit wet. So, not much yard work to do, not much errands can be done in this weather. And I know it looks super bright out there, but it's actually pretty overcast. So what are we reviewing today? We are reviewing a local beer, obviously. Though not all beers I review are going to be local, just the majority of them, I suppose. Anything from a growler will likely be local. 99% sure probably be local. And this one is from what many reviewers have called Hawaii's most underrated brewery, and that is Big Island Brewhaus. And this in particular is actually very interesting, of course, in the growler, and I've been letting it warm up a bit since it's a brown ale, and it is called Big Mac Nut Brown Ale. Here we go again. I think it's so blurry so quickly when it always gets confused by the outside light, I suppose. Okay, let's close it all the way there. And it's called Big Mac Nut Brown Ale. Why is it called that? Well, because it's a brown ale and they use 6 different kinds of barley, and the adjuncts they use are 1. Mac nut, 2. Molasses, and it's also aged in old Maker's Mark barrels. So this is apparently a barrel-aged beer, and it is not as heavy as many barrel-aged beers. It's only 6.4 ABV, but I am nevertheless looking forward to trying this, as Big Island Brewhaus is one of my favorite local breweries. As people who have been watching this channel for years can recall, they're the ones who made the Red Sea of Cacao one. That one was truly amazing beer, and I'm looking forward to trying this one. It's been warming up for about 15 minutes, trying to get it a little bit closer to about, 60 degrees, and let's open this, shall we? Okay. Maybe a slight bit more head for a brown ale than it should be, but that's okay. A little bit drippy on me. So, to the light here, into daylight, and as you can see, pretty opaque. It's bright out there, but it's barely making it through the bottom there. And it's sort of a yellow ruby. Head is thick, a little bit fizzy though, and beigeish. Beige to off-white. Nutty, earthy. More nutty than you would expect a brown ale to be. It's the nuttiness is very amplified. Some hints of old world style hops, helping with that kind of earthy aspect. Mildly roasty, not much. And subtle underlying sweetness. Immediately, big woodiness from start to finish. Not too much of kind of bourbon notes, but definitely charred wood from start to finish. Also, interplay with the slight hop bitterness in the finish as well. On the dry side for a brown ale, very little sweetness perceived from start. Mids, there's just a very slight in the finish there. There's that lack of sweetness. It's a bit more. It feels a bit more thin and tannic on the palate than I would expect a brown ale to be. Macadamia nut definitely kind of shows up there in the mids to finish, but is kind of overwhelmed by the charred wood aspect. Not too many top notes, actually. It seems like a lot of the residual sugar has been used up in the fermentation process. It comes across as very dry, you know, and as such, that kind of woodiness and hoppiness kind of comes across as a bit stronger, and all the more sweeter aspects, like say the macadamia nuts. The macadamia nuts are there, but they're underneath the woodiness. You know, it's it kind of feels like, say, the mac nuts have been maybe perhaps roasted too much in a certain way. Not that they have, but you know, it tastes more like char than nut. In the same way, you also taste like the molasses there, but the molasses also tastes charred. Like, you know, you're stirring it and in a hot pan, and it, you know, kind of burned on the bottom, and it overwhelms the rest of it. And I'm not sure if that char is because of the bourbon barrel, because, you know, bourbon is aged in wood barrels, or because of a general low ABV and lack of sugar. I kind of know most barrel-aged stouts usually have about 2 to 4 more percentage points of ABV in this, and part of that is because it has more sugar, with more sugar to ferment, and more sugar to, you know, leave more residual sugar that's left behind after the fermentation process ends. And honestly, without all that sugar, you know, without, you know, those strong sugar notes, and again, there is some residual sweetness there, especially in the end, but you should, in my view, the style guidelines for a brown ale, while it should not be as sweet as, say, a stout, imperial stout would be, whether or not it should be a little bit, well, that's a long story there that I'm not going to go into, but generally it should have a little bit more. It should have more sweetness in this. It should have more residual sugar. And when I say residual sugar, of course I mean you know, maltose. You know, from the barley. So you're left with a lot of char, a lot of roast, some nuttiness, but no, you know, it's become kind of unbalanced because of the lack of sugar. you know that there would be more expressiveness in the flavor if there was a little bit more sugar in there. And I'm kind of hammering the point here. By no means is it undrinkable. It's just I'm sort of mildly disappointed. But, you know, there's always a first time to be disappointed. And, you know, as far as disappointments go, not everyone can hit one out of the park. And again, all tastes are relative. Somebody who, I don't know, likes their beers a little bit on the bitter side, someone who's acclimated to IPAs, they might find this more up their alley. Due to the dryness and bitterness. For me, it is something that kind of came out, for whatever reason, a little bit unbalanced on my palate. Still, you know, there's macadamia nut flavor in it, there's molasses flavor in it, it just doesn't express itself well. Of course, the bourbon barrel expresses itself perhaps a little bit too well. So, that's your beer review for tonight. Big Mac Nut Brown Ale from Big Island Brewhaus. Kind of disappointing for me, but, you know, I still love them. I still think they make amazing beer, and I'm still looking forward to trying what they make. You know, not everything's going to hit it out of the ballpark, and not everyone's taste will be the same. Again, it's still a well-made beer. It's still got flavor nuances. It just kind of comes across as unbalanced flavor profile-wise, texture-wise to me. That's a beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.